I'm telling you, you're with the winner here. You're with the winner. You should have heard me when I was doing the interview with the Baja guys. Hello, welcome to Hot Dipped. Today we're joined with Monnig Global's own Jim Yu, the IT specialist here, Jim and I have one thing that we do share in common, a little bit of Asian in us, and but so from that aspect, what do you remember growing up in Taiwan? Do you have any memory of Taiwan?
Not really. All I remember was going to school and then came here
Mm-hmm.
and went to school, but not entirely.
Yeah, I don't have very much memory of when I was growing up, just a little bit. That because I remember my the neighbor's car when I was in the Philippines. Um, but as far as the environment, because I'm sure we were near the ocean someplace, but
Yeah.
we did because it was Quebec City, Manila. I was born on Clark Air Force Base, so I'm sure I was on Clark Air Force Base grounds most of the time. But yeah, that's how it was before I came over. 'Cause my dad was in the Air Force, and I ended up hitting everything from Hawaii, California, and all the way up here to Missouri. Um, so for um, but as you got here, as you starting your career and you went to school, did you go to school around the Marshall area?
Yes. So went to school. If I can remember, I went to third grade. I started in third grade and then went to high school in Marshall, half a year freshman year, then moved to Boonville and then graduated Boonville.
Okay, so you're a pirate.
Yep.
um, and so and I understand your family had a restaurant at one point. Where was that at? And how'd that come to be?
So my aunt and uncle owned it first,
Mhm.
and so my parents was working for them. And after that, they wanted to retire, so then my dad bought it from them. So then after that, I just been working for them. I don't know how long. I believe it was started from 2013, I believe, and started working there um, after high school because I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, I was sitting there working and thinking about what I wanted to do. Then I wanted, I guess I was kind of like inspired by the highway patrol.
Right.
So back then they required, I think it was like 31 credit hours. And so I went to enroll myself to college just to get in criminal justice to get, 31 credit hours just
Right.
so I can enter it. But then, after seeing their requirements, I guess, where you have to you have to relocate if you get into the academy and
Right.
graduate, and I wasn't ready for that. So then I signed up for the police academy in Columbia called LETI, and after finishing that, I had a buddy in there. He was already working for the Missouri State Park Rangers, and he said they're hiring. Get yourself, get your foot in the door and see what how it goes. So
Mm-hmm.
I applied for it, and so once I applied for it, they have a spot at Knob Noster, which was probably I'd say 45-minute drive
Right.
from Marshall. So once I got in, you do all your physical tests or your PT tests and stuff, and once you pass that, you get yourself in, and they basically do your field training
Right.
after that. And well, field training will took probably for me. It probably took like 4 months, and then I was out on my own. And after that, it was pretty good. I don't.
And you said you got they tased you once before. Was that during training? And that is that voluntarily, or does everybody go through that process?
It was voluntary.
Yeah.
So it was during one of the trainings that we were getting tasers, and it was at the Highway Patrol, in one of their training facilities,
Right.
and I just volunteered for it just because I wanted it to know what it felt like getting tased. So
So was it painful or what? I mean, what was what was the feeling of being tased?
it wasn't painful. It was just two prongs going into you. You could feel it. Then the electricity just goes throughout your whole body, and you just couldn't do anything.
Right.
It looks painful, but it's not.
Yeah,
I don't know to some people, but
yeah, it just like disables your muscle functions or something.
yeah, you're basically locked up and you can't do anything for I can't remember how many seconds
Hmm.
that is, but
So, so what got you into IT as far as a career? Because I know you were in Ranger for a while, and before we get to that, I mean, you had one experience. I remember you telling me that where you had to get into a chase or a car chase or something like that.
in the Rangers, so I was sitting at Knob Noster. There's a highway that runs through there called Highway DD, and there's a guy was coming down the hill, so I was running radar, and he was doing I think 77 and a 55. And so I stopped him, and he said he had a cruise control on mine. There's no way cruise control can do 70.
Right.
You're on cruise control, and I could tell he either had alcohol in like a little, I think it was a Casey's, what you call those little cup thing, and he gave me his license. After that, I went back to the car and checked his license and everything, and then he just took off on me. So I sat there and looked, and I was like, "Oh shoot, did he just really, take
Yeah.
off on me?" And then at that time, I was like, I wasn't really thinking, and I was like, you know what, forget it, let's go. So I went after him, and after I can't remember how far, but I went out of the park, and uh, at that time he had like I don't know how long of a head start. So then I lost him, and someone called it in, saw where he was hidden at, and um, then the was it Johnson County? I believe that was the county. Called on the radio and said that they found the person, and so I turned around and they assisted, and he was his car was in a farm field, and he covered it with like the haze, bunch of haze and stuff, and he was like hiding the next fence over. That's it.
Well, he didn't have much of a much area to go if he didn't know the area, is what I assume
Yeah,
happened. He just said, "It's the first hiding place I can find," and they'll never find my car underneath a bale of hay.
yeah, yeah. I mean, he did apologize and all that stuff, but after that, we took him to jail, and they did everything from there.
Mhm.
But I mean, I did get a pretty good, written up for it
Right.
because we had no pursuit policy, and
Oh.
so
But there was one time, didn't you say that you were required to assist in the chase or something like that?
so it's basically like a mutual aid. If
Yeah.
they request you, then you can go help them, but if they don't, you can't. You
Okay.
have to basically not. You can't do anything.
Um, so moving back to the other question, after at some point you decided maybe I want to try IT, or how did that come about?
So during that time, was that was I guess that was my hobby. I guess
Hmm.
no, well that was I have a bunch of hobbies, but I used to build computers and stuff like that, and I didn't really think of making IT as a career or anything like that, and so I was looking for jobs and stuff after the Rangers because I guess I was ready for a new chapter, and so I looked at the hospital and they were hiring for IT tech support and apply for that. Um, after that, I got in and uh, started learning a lot of things, and almost had to teach myself some stuff too because
Right.
I didn't know much of the stuff that they were the programs or softwares that they were using.
Uh, yeah. When I was when I was coming up in IT, because I was a designer by trade, then these companies would ask me, because they knew I did some stuff at home, my own self care of the IT stuff, and I would shadow one of these IT services once in a while, just so that if there's anything that comes up that needs to be taken care of immediately, that I knew how to do it. And anyways, with IT, it's always a learning process because there's always something new to learn. And so, yeah, it'd be hard to know everything unless you were a specialist. Because when I was working for one company, they had my counterparts across the pond over in Denmark. They were all specialists. One guy was a IBM X Serve guy. One guy was broadband communications. One guy was a Lotus Notes guy. And over here in the States, I managed everything. But granted, we were mostly Mac based. They were all
Mhm.
IBM based. So, as we would say, maybe the PC side requires more specialists
Yeah.
than on the Mac side. I don't know because I was able to manage. I think I had about 7 PCs and an AS400 on a token ring network, and then all the Macs were on Ethernet, and that was at the corporate office. So we had a product service center that was all on PC, and a corporate office that was all on Mac, and all of our franchises were all on Mac. So, but there was that learning curve and having to learn how to build servers and such like that. So that's always on uh, a factor of IT. It's always learning. Um, so as far as your on IT, uh, what do you find that you're learning and getting experience in here that that uh, that makes it, I guess, enjoyable for you?
Um, Here is I had to do a lot of learning because I wasn't really involved more of in like a networking
Mhm.
type. I was more of like a hardware and end user support.
Right.
So here I had to learn networking stuff and new hardwares and stuff that we have here, but it was a little bit challenging. But then once you put yourself to it, then you know you learn it and you get what some of these tech jargons or words mean and stuff like that.
Right.
So
Right. 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 Yeah. I would say terminology is always a learning curve sometimes. Because like when I first went to college, I was studying accounting, and
mm,
all they talked about was terminology. So that turned me off from accounting, and then that's when I went back to design. And then, but yeah, I mean, heck, for me, it was all building computers initially, like you,
mhm.
and then I got into, you have your dial up, your frame relays, your ISDNs, your T1s, and now fiber cable, and learning how to do firewalls and all
Oh yeah.
that. So, all that was coming up. So it's all, like I said, it's always a learning curve. There's always something new to learn, especially with all the languages that come out, right? So, and the new operating systems that keep changing on you every once in a while. So
Mhm.
you're always on that constant flux of trying to stay ahead of the game and doing betas. And so I've seen you doing some of the betas on some of those things like the iOS. Do you ever do you find that challenging sometimes when you switch over to the beta applications?
Not really a challenge. I'd said it's more of like they do warn you not to do it on your main device or
Hmm.
else it'll mess up your phone. But I always do it anyways
Yeah,
because I
yeah,
like to test it out, new features and stuff that they're coming out with. And I never had issues, but sometimes you do have issues where your phone gets too buggy or it's too slow, then you'll have to downgrade to your latest one that you had before.
right, right. Because I remember I would have like a laptop that would be on its own isolated network that would use to test iOS or Windows operating systems on before bringing it in to the main network, because I didn't want to cause any problems on programs. Now, from that, from my understanding, you have did that get your interest in performance vehicles, or was that something you always had since you've been growing up?
I'd say since moving to Boonville, I
Uh,
met a friend. He's was already into cars, so then I got into it.
mm-hmm.
And after that, started getting more into cars and stuff, and see other cars out there that's fast and sounds nice. Then that's how I got more into it. Then after that, I said I want to get this car and modify it, do this and all that to the car.
Right.
So, which that was a money pit too.
Yes. Yeah, it's always money
So
when you modify
yeah,
vehicles.
but now it's just, I guess when you get older, I mean, you're still into those cars, but now my thing is more of a Teslas,
Right.
because their technology is nowhere near any other vehicles,
Mm-hmm.
and the torque on those cars are pretty good.
Right.
So
See, I would say that I'm more of the old fashioned guy that likes to hear the V8 rumble, and that. Yeah, I appreciate technology. I work in technology. But sometimes I guess from growing up in some of the tech that I grew up in, sometimes you're more cautious with technology, um, and hate to be. I do miss my old standard manual transmission. Um, I do have it in one of my vehicles, but it's inside the garage getting built up. But you know, you can never be stranded anywhere really, because even if your battery's dead, you can still get the car running and get yourself home. But I mean, I guess that's the only thing that I'm more cautious about when we get to new tech, is it being stranded someplace
mhm.
and you can't move to another location. But so on the Teslas, I know you've been playing with the Starlinks as well, for Elon's technology. So how's that coming along?
I think that we have one here, and we deployed it. We tested everything. It works great. I mean, if you're out in the middle of nowhere, you could use it. Where you don't have any cell phone service, you'll
Right.
have internet. So I think it's really good.
Um, and how would you say, in comparison, because we have our fiber here. Is there any do you see I guess any slowdown or any difference on an individual basis? Because I know if you the larger the group is, the less bandwidth you have. As a one-to-one, if you had to do it, had either network, it's probably about the same as far as your upload download.
Right now, I'd say with the Starlink, it's about almost 400 megs.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not quite there at 1 gig.
Right.
So
Okay.
compare that to fiber. I mean, you'll have direct connection with fiber. It's just going to be quicker than satellite. But once these technologies roll out, I'm sure they'll be capable of 1 gig.
And what would you say? Um, are there any I guess max for Starlink? Are there, because I remember when I had satellite, are there like max amount of bandwidth that you can utilize at any given day? Do they have any limitations?
Yes, they have like plans you can get. I think we're on the 1 terabyte. So once we go over that, it does slow it down, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I may have to look into that because I can't remember.
Okay. And as far as and back to the Tesla, I know I jump around a little bit. I apologize for that. So, I know it's a clean aesthetic. What did you have any type of when you go from transition from a combustion engine to an electrical car, a combustion engine, you wait for the engine sound. Do you just look for all the components kind of light up, or because I know when you turn on an electric? Oh, well, I did a hybrid once. You had to push the brake and press the button, and there's like no sound, and you're like, "Am I on?"
Oh,
Did you have that when you first got into an electric vehicle?
kind of, but if back then, you would research the vehicle and see how people are driving it and
Mm,
how it starts up and stuff. So like you can always go test drive those Teslas and see how you like it. I mean, it's not for everyone.
right.
So it's only convenient if there's like superchargers or if you have a home charger that you can charge on. And um I mean, I haven't had any issues with it.
Have you tested? Do you have the autopilot system? Have you tested that out? How's that work? And how are you with other drivers having that tech out and on the road today?
Um for people that aren't really that into technology and stuff, and when they first experience that, it's gonna feel weird and they're not gonna trust it. But it's it's come a long ways
Mm-hmm.
because the full self driving right now, it's supervised full self driving, so you have to monitor your surroundings as well.
Right.
So if anything comes along, you can intervene and take control of the vehicle. But other than that, it just drives you put in a GPS where you want to go, and it takes you where you need to.
Yeah, I think I'm a control person, so I don't think I'll. It's hard. Sometimes it's hard for me to sit in the passenger seat
Yeah.
without me going. Are they going to stop the car? You,
Yeah.
you brace your feet because you feel like they're not stopping as soon as you would probably start slowing the vehicle down. That type of thing. So I don't know how I would feel because I mean, I'm sure it's better than those. What was I'm trying to remember those. Is it WeGo? What were those other ones they have out in San Francisco right now?
Oh,
Where
Waymo.
the Wemos.
Waymo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because or Waymos because they have. I've seen instances where those cars are like driving into police investigations um, or there was this one person that was filming it, all those cars coming down their street and going around in a circle.
Oh, yeah.
it's like you think that's just confusion on their software with their devices, or what do you think might be happening to something like that?
That I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I don't know much about those vehicles,
Hmm.
so I can't tell you.
Okay.
I have to do research, but yeah, I don't know much about those
Right.
cars.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Jim, and thank you for sharing a little bit about your history there. You've just been hot dipped. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching Hot Dipped. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on that notification bell for future episodes.